FlyingVoice.com sent me this phone to try out and do a little review on. I run a PBX in my house, so I figured why not? Let's see what this is all about. So I'm going to review this phone for you, but first let's open the box and see what's inside. This is a This is an FIP14G series phone from FlyingVoice.com. And a little bit of paperwork here. This was shipped from overseas and it ended up here in perfect condition, so that's nice since it had a long journey. All right, so here's the phone unit itself, and there's also a little quick installation guide that comes with it. That'll be helpful for when we get started. This is just a standard phone. It's got a display on it, and we'll go over the details of this as we go along here. Standard keypad, some soft buttons along the display here, as well as some just static buttons for volume control, speakerphone, that kind of thing. All right. Also in the box we have helpful Ethernet cable. It's always nice when it comes with an extra Ethernet cable. You can never have too many of those. It comes with a power adapter as well. And by the way, on the back of the phone, we also have two Ethernet connectors. One is for connecting to the network, and one is connecting like a PC or peripheral. And then a 5-volt power input. And that's what this is for. We're going to do 5-volt power input to the device. I don't think it's PoE, but we'll find out as we go along here. And by the way, the phone is actually an F1 or FIP14G phone. So that's what this phone is here. Comes with a little stand for mounting it on setting it on the desk, as well as the ability to mount it on a wall. It's got some screws here for mounting it on the wall. Comes with a standard handset cord, and of course the handset itself, nicely wrapped. And that's all there is to the box. So let me just go ahead and put the cover or the mounting bracket on the back of it here. So it just simply slides on, makes it nice and easy. It goes in the two little grooves, and then you just slide it up, maybe. Get it started here and slide it up into the grooves. And once you have it slid into the grooves here, you can just set it down here and set it on its side. And it's not adjustable that I can see here, at least not in this mode. Oh, it is. So you can take it off and you can actually make it stand up by these two little things right here. You can stand it up at this angle, or even a little bit of an angle like this, so it lays back farther. So I'm going to put it in the higher angle now. And now it's sitting almost straight up, and that's how I prefer it, so that I can see the whole display. So that's as simple as the mounting bracket is. Let's go ahead and connect the handset here. And there's two jacks on the side, one for a handset and one for a headset, so you can use either one with the phone. Okay, one thing I like to check on these phones is when you hang it up, does it hang up solidly? A lot of the times I'll hang the phone up and this thing will just fall right off because it doesn't have a good seat to it. This it seems to have a good seat to it. As I use it over the next couple of weeks, we'll see how well that works. But I'm just able to hang it up pretty quickly here. The handset's got a good solid feel to it. It's not too heavy, it's not too light. Once I get it fired up and powered up and configured, we'll see how well the sound is on it. Of course, it comes with a speakerphone as well, so we'll see how that goes. And that's basically it for that. What we're going to do now is I'm going to set it up with power, and then we'll get into programming it for first use. Now, the way I'm going to do this is pretend like I've never seen this phone before, which is true. And I'm going to, on camera, see how easy it is to set up the phone without a bunch of shenanigans and see how well that goes. So stay tuned for that. We'll get that next. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start working on this phone and getting it powered up. I'm going to be following along with this manual right here, the quick installation guide. I realize that the audience that this phone is intended for typically will be somebody who is used to doing this kind of work in the IT industry. So this may not be necessary, but we're going to follow along in the guide because this is the first time I've used this phone and I want to see how well I can follow the guide and get things up and running quickly. So, of course, it goes through, the packaging list, and it talks about assembling the phone, which you've already done. and then it wants to start the phone. And so for starting the phone, I'm going to plug it into the power. So I've got my power cord here already ready to go. And let's see here. And I've got it plugged into the network cable as well. So we'll see how this works. And it's going to try to get an IP address from my DHCP server. And give it a moment to do that. And that seems to be taking a lot longer than I would think it would take. All right, there we go. Now it's starting to go here. We're starting to see it get all the way to the end. It's almost to the end. All right, so now it is obtaining the IP address. It's hard to see that, but it says obtaining IP address here. All right, so I'm going to pick English. That's going to be 1 here. I'll push the button and say OK. That's not good. All right, so now it's got the time and the date, but it's the wrong date. So we do have to do some configuration. All right, so now we need to find out what the IP address is on the phone. And by doing menu, and then we want to do, and this is in the manual, so I'm following the manual. That should be pretty intuitive. So I'll click on status, and I've got Wi-Fi is disconnected. I've got VLAN ID disabled, DHCP mode, and there's my IP address of my phone. So let's go to the computer, and let's just see if we can go to that IP address. And it says the default username and password is admin. We'll go ahead and log into the phone. All right, so there is our product information, our MAC address, Harvard version, all of that stuff. And then our line status. So it's not registered because we haven't set anything up yet. Okay, so I have a SIP account set up on my PBX server for this phone. Let's just go through a few of these other options real quick. Obviously, we're not connected to anything. It looks like this phone is actually an 8-line phone. So it's connected at 1 gig. So there is a 1 gig port on it that's working. You can also use Wi-Fi on here. You can set static IP addresses as well. So up here, if we look at our syslog, probably nothing much in here other than for troubleshooting purposes. Exception syslog, nothing notable there. So under network, we have our WAN IP mode. So you can set that to static if you want a static IP address on the phone. DNS mode, auto, or you can set manual DNS settings. You can set up VLANs. So you can use VLAN IDs if you send your VoIP traffic over a different VLAN, that kind of thing. PC ports, that's the port on the actual other side of the phone that I showed in the beginning of the video, where you can plug your PC into the phone. You can disable or enable that one. And then your 802.x11 mode or 802.1x mode. We'll leave that all alone. This is for assuming Wi-Fi. Now there's a manual you can download on the website, the FlyingVoice.com website, that goes into detail more than the quick start. We're just doing a quick start here to see how quickly we can get it done. So that's your WAN. You can do IPv6 if you choose to do that. You can also use a VPN to connect up to something. So if you want to send your phone traffic over VPN, you can do that as well. Wireless, again, you can run a wireless, we're not going to do that immediately, but you can connect via Wi-Fi, and I'll experiment with that one in a little bit. When I start using the phone to see how well the phone works, we'll just use the Wi-Fi a little bit and see how that sounds. And then you can set all of this stuff up here. So there's a lot of advanced settings in the phone that you can tailor for your specific environment. Obviously, wireless security, be able to choose your SSID once you turn the radio on, security mode, passphrase, all the normal Wi-Fi stuff that you would find. WDS I would never use, but you can actually do WDS, WPS as well. And then you have your station info for your wireless status. It seems to me like there's a whole lot of wireless information for a phone. I suppose that helps in troubleshooting, or you want the best quality possible when you're making voice calls, then you can do a lot of setting up that way. So there's just a ton of Wi-Fi setup and stuff here, way more than you would typically use, I would think. Then you can do all of the internet connections stuff for the wireless settings, so you can make it static or DHCP as well. And then you have all of these different things that tell you what's going on. This is the SIP account. This is where we're going to set up our SIP account. So registration has failed, obviously, because I haven't set it up yet. I'm going to say, just call it that for lack of anything better. The phone number, I'm not going to fill it out right now. When I make calls outbound from my SIP trunk, or from my stations or extensions on my PBX, it automatically assigns an outbound caller ID number. So I don't know if that's what this is for, but I'm not going to worry about that. And then, of course, I have the extension number, which is the account number, and then the account secret. I'm using free PBX. And so the password is going to be a long secret number or secret string. And then we have proxy servers if you need it, outbound servers, backup outbound servers. And that's what I'm missing here. So if I look at the ports here in the quick start guide, proxy server, I'm assuming is what they're talking about. In the quick start guide, they show the settings for this. And so if you look at the quick start guide, you can see, we don't need that. You can see on the quick start guide, you can see that right there, which is the proxy server setting. I don't know if we need that or not, if that's what we're talking about, but I'm going to start with that and put in the IP address of my PBX server. I would think it would be outbound server, but we'll go with what the quick start manual is. And again, the point of this is to see how quickly we can get things up and running. Oh, and you know what? I missed it here. So the proxy server is the domain or IP address of the SIP server. And then the phone number is the number of telephone provided by the SIP proxy. And I don't think we need that in here. So I'm just going to fill in the IP address of my SIP server and the ports standard. All my codecs and everything I'm going to leave as default. Excuse me, microphone. Everything else I'm going to leave as default. This phone has a lot of features, a lot of settings. Call waiting. A lot of this stuff is done internal to my PBX, so it's not something that I need to configure on the phone. Now, voicemail display, I probably want to do that. Outgoing call active password, outgoing call block password. So these are things that I need to read in the main manual, the big manual. SIP advanced setup. And again, some of this might require you to set up some of the settings in order to make outbound calls. Some of this kind of reminds me of the Cisco SPA that I've configured, where you have dialing patterns and things like that. Well, we'll just go ahead and see what that does. And this is, you can do this for every single one of these lines. So you can have 8 lines. And then let's look at, is there a save button down here? Yep, let's save and apply. And let's just see if it registers on the phone. Go back to the main menu here. Back. Maybe talking to the phone and programming. Okay, so there's 8 lines, and I would assume, I don't know if it's backwards here. This would be line 1 over here, or this would be line 1. But this has that on there, and my browser just finished the application. So looking at this, I am not sure if that is the line. It says it's in use, or maybe, I don't know. Let me push it. Yeah, there's nothing there. So, okay, so let's go to status and see if we're actually, let's see if we're actually showing any kind of status. And it says registration failed. And why it says primary server and then it tells us to use proxy server, I don't know, but it says primary server is blank. So back over here to SIP accounts, enable. Oh, that's interesting. Everything has been erased. Okay. Well, let's try it again. And let me just look at the manual to make sure these fields don't require something strange. The number displayed in call E. Call E. Display name says, let's try 6001. Phone number, I'm going to leave blank. Account, again, 6001. I'll put in my secret from FreePBX, which is the password. Proxy server, again, is going to be my FreePBX server. I don't have a backup outbound server. And I'm just looking at the manual here, this paper. It's a little confusing. It says proxy server. If you're into networking and you understand networking, proxy server is something that is different than what they're calling it here. It says outbound proxy is the outbound proxy IP or domain name. Outbound port is a service port of outbound proxy. Proxy port, the port which SIP server supports of VoIP service default 5060. Okay, so I set all this up. Enabled. There's my display name, phone number. I'm going to leave blank. I'm just going to put 6001 on. I'm going to put 6001 in all of them because that's what the number is for that. Instead of saving and applying, I'm just going to try to save it. Let's see what happens. Now it says it's saved it. And I don't know. Let's look at SIP settings here. Maybe we have to set the port here or the IP address. Nope. That's just actual SIP settings. VoIP quality of service, ring. We have all these rings. You can choose for the different lines. Go back to line 1. I'm hoping there's still stuff there. There is. Okay. Now, how do you can do save and you can do save and apply. So I saved the data in there. So let me just save and apply and see if it applies anything to the phone. Let's see if anything happens. Oh, look. Okay, so now we have 6001 on the phone. So it saved it. And now I have up here, oh, I don't know why it keeps going back to the language setup. I'll just say okay. All right, so now we have 6001 here. So does that mean that it's going to work? And we also have, you notice over here, 6001. All the information saved this time around. So maybe it needed this display name and phone number this time around. Okay, so if I call this from my other phone, call extension 6001, would it ring? Is it going to ring? Let's see. So, yes. So see, now it's showing that my office phone is ringing, 4001. Let me turn that down. Awesome, okay. Okay, so we are actually online with one missed call. So you can see that's there. All right, so I can view it. It tells me the missed call on the display here. All right, option. So I can delete it, detail. Let's get some detail. All right, there's my office number, start time, duration. It's still got the wrong time zone, apparently. It's not 8:40, that's Eastern time. And then my account's on line 1. Okay, so back. Now, if I make an outbound call, let's try that. Let's do it on the speakerphone, which I assume is this button here. All right, let me just push that button. And I dial 4001. Can I just do this? Sure can. Now it's dialing 4001. And you may be able to hear that. That's my ringer on my other phone. Hello? Hello. Test. Nice. Very nice. All right, so that is working now. Now the next question is, can I make an outbound call without doing any other settings on the phone. You know, you saw on the settings over here, you have a whole bunch of stuff on your SIP SIP account where you can set all these parameters, all these advanced settings. I don't know that I need any of these, so let's try to make an outbound phone call. Okay, let me try to dial my cell phone now and see if that works. And that's an outbound outside phone number call. It's ringing. And that's working. So, and it's actually coming from my, home address, which is, or my home phone number, which makes sense because that's how I have it configured in FreePBX. Okay, so we have configured from start to finish this phone right here, this FlyingVoice phone. All right, so let's give you some specs on this phone. This is the FIP14G. It's an enterprise Gigabit IPS color screen phone, which we saw there. This phone has a 3.5 inch by 40 by 320 IPS color screen, has a backlight, has wide viewing angles, and I'm kind of looking at it from the side and I can see it just fine. There's probably a brightness setting that I can set on here to make it easier to see. And then it has an intuitive interface, which we'll play with here in a minute. Let's see. So it has wideband G.722 and Opus. It has HD voice solutions for the handset and hands-free scenarios. So even in noisy environments, supposedly you can hear well. This has a Wi-Fi to LAN and AP mode. So that's probably why it had so many wireless settings. It can do a Wi-Fi to LAN bridge mode and Wi-Fi AP mode. So your phone, this phone, can become an access point for, and they talk about things like printers and such in your local area, can then become, or then can then connect to this phone and use it as an access point. That would be an interesting little thing to play with. Ergonomic design, we talked about a little bit about that. Of course, it's got the concave buttons, easy grip handset, multi-angle stand. So you can see the stand here on the bottom. You can flip this over as just shown in the picture and get a different angle on that. So you have a multi-angle stand, 45 and 60 degrees. It's got auto provisioning, so you can do FTP, TFTP, HTTP, option 66, and also I guess it's proprietary, but FlyingVoice's FACS. IP phones can be automatically configured and managed remotely, centrally. Audio quality so far, from what I've heard just now playing with it, sounds great. Also, let's just look at some of these menu options here. So there's our menu, and then for here, we just move around. There is a flashing green button for whatever reason. I think that's actually flashing on the camera and not on the phone itself. So message, voicemail. I have no messages for 6001. And then of course, each one of these shows your individual messages. Back again. Wi-Fi, which you can set up here. Basic language, time and date. So this is what I'm going to do, is set the time zone to, wow, we got to go way back. So it must have been set for 8 o'clock in the morning. Now this came from overseas, so it's probably set default that way. So there's my GMT -6, 24 hours. Date format is week, month, day. I like day, month, year because that's how we do it here. SNTP, pool.ntp.org, so it'll automatically update the time for you. Okay, I'll say okay on that. Display, backlight time is 15 seconds. You can change that in, looks like, increments. So starts at either always on, 15, 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2, 5, kind of linearly goes, linearly, it goes up in steps. All right, so I'm going to leave that where it is now. Ring sounds, you can change the ring, and it's got a preview. for all the different ring types. I'm going to leave it on that one just so it's not quite as loud in the house when it's ringing. Sounds, you have handset sounds, volume, hand-free volume sounds, I believe. And then Wi-Fi, we talked about that, and then you can reboot the phone. And then language, of course, English, Chinese, French, German, Italian, Polish, Portuguese, Spanish, Turkish, Russian, Czech, Hebrew, Arabic. So you have 14 different languages you can choose on the phone. And that's about it for that. And then under advanced, you've got to put in the password, which I don't know if that's this password. Incorrect. So that must be a numeric password, and it's probably something that you would set in the phone itself. If we go into the phone settings. Oh, it's logged me out. Handset input gain, handset volume. So that's what sounds were on the phone, were these different gains. So you can actually set the input volume for the handset volume and the gain for the handset. Your DTMF volume, your speakerphone gain, and your speakerphone volume can be set. Now that speakerphone volume can be set also via just the keypad itself as well. Ringer volume, you can set that as well. Speaker phone mic boost, you can enable or disable that. Tone type is, let's go, oh, and that's why it said the number when I pushed the button over here and it brought up a line. Let's cancel that. And I do this line, go back. That is a Chinese, I call it dial tone. So the tone type, we're gonna pick it, whoops. We're gonna pick US for the type. Maybe USA, and then what else we have here? Intercom enables. Oh, there is so much. I chose USA here. There is so much stuff you can set on this phone. It's just incredible. I mean, more than most people will ever mess with. What I'm looking for is the password for. Let me save this. Let me find the password for logging into the phone. So here's a config file. You can download the config file and then you can upload it. So that basically gives you a backup of the phone. That's pretty awesome. Change your password when you get this phone. Management using VPNs disabled. Here's web access ports, web SSL ports. So you can change your ports that you connect to this on. You can disable or enable SSL. You can set allowed IP ranges to administer the phone. You can do the same thing basically with telnet access. We talked about our NTP settings. I did that on the phone directly, but you can do it in here as well. Daylight savings time, I'm going to enable that one. And last month in October, first month in April, I think that's right, at 2 o'clock in the morning, 1 hour difference. So wherever you're at in your time zone, you could potentially, I know some countries are half an hour. You could set the half hour instead of the 60 minutes. You can enable syslog, and then we'll save and apply. Then we'll go back and we'll try to see what, and you can see it changing. I think that means it's writing to the phone. So let's see, it's applied now on the web browser. And that is what I expect to hear on this phone. All right, so all of that works great. So far, the phone is easy to program. It's got just tons and tons and tons of settings. I mean, more than I would ever use. It's easy to set up from my perspective. It has so many options that unless you really know what you're doing on some of them, the default seems to be just fine. Once you get to this point and you adding other lines is just going to be as easy. Just going through here and selecting lines, let's say you have 5 or 6 extensions. And I do in the house, like I will add a couple extensions that will ring based on the routing of my PBX. I do that on my current VoIP phone. I can do that on this phone as well, up to 8 lines. And of course, when you look at the phone itself, you've got all 8 of your lines readily accessible right from the keypad, which is nice. So the phone itself is a good quality. It feels like a solid phone. It has a good quality handset. It has a nice bright display. The camera doesn't do it justice here, but it's nice and bright. I'm looking at it really from an angle here, and I can read the clock on it with no problem at all. We've got conference, it looks like here, or conference. We've got transfer, mute, headset, home button for bringing it home. That's your home button there. We've got a directory. We've got do not disturb, announcement if you are intercom, if you have intercom capability in your setup. So a really, really full featured phone. As of this recording, this phone is about $142 US. And I think based on what you get for the phone, that's a really good price for the phone. It's just a full featured phone. And you know, when you're talking about things like, I don't know, adding an access point to a phone to extend your network inside of a room. Let's say you have an office that's far away from maybe an access point, and you have some wireless printers and PCs in there. This is a good solution for a network port that allows you to give access to your Wi-Fi devices in the room itself. So that's an interesting bonus feature. Other than that, I think it's a great phone. The audio quality is good. It's easy to set up, even with just using a quick start guide if you have any idea what you're doing at all. And that's going to do it for this video. That was just a quick review of the FlyingVoice FIP14G VoIP phone, 8-line phone. If you're interested in this phone, look it up on the flyingvoice.com website. And thank you for watching this video, and we will see you on the next one.